Good evening. This is Paul Lindenschmidt. The picture we are watching is Winchester 73, which was produced in 1950, directed by Anthony Mann, and stars the inimitable James Stewart. It is considered by film historians to be responsible not only for redirecting the American Western towards more complex dramatic themes, but for starting a whole new generation of Westerns. We are here at Universal Studios watching the movie and are fortunate to have with us the star of Winchester 73, Mr. James Stewart. Welcome, Mr. Stewart. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Paul. I haven't seen Winchester 73 for quite some time. It's going to be a nice experience.
Well, good, good. Wasn't Winchester 73 and Harvey a part of a package deal with Universal? In fact, didn't the studio expect Harvey to be the big hit of the two?
Yes, actually, the reason Harvey was tacked on, or the reason Winchester was tacked on, I sort of got the upper hand because I played Harvey in New York on the stage for a couple of summers when Frank Pay wanted to take a vacation. And so I had sort of an inside track on Harvey. Winchester was tacked on the deal because Winchester had been around town for quite a long time. Everybody had seen it, and nobody cared for it. But Lou Wasserman cared for it. He thought it was fine, and he got it in on this deal.
Winchester 73! But I'd give to have that gun.
One of 1,000. First one I ever see. But, mister, that's a real gun.
Heard it took over a year to make it.
Yeah, they give the first to President Grant.
I'll sure be in good company when I win that one.
You know, your image in this film was very different from the previous films that you did. It was a sort of a new, tough image. How did theatergoers react to this?
Well, actually, I really didn't think there was much, was any violent difference in the part. Actually, I think this was one of the advantages that I found when I first started doing Westerns, that the idea of sort of changing your character, of sort of getting tough, and sort of I didn't find that this was the case. I think looking over years and years of them, I suppose one thing is clear, is that my character and sort of the character in real life, but my character in Westerns probably was more vulnerable than, say, Duke Wayne. You know, when Duke was in it, everybody pretty much knew that Duke was going to come out on top, but there was a little question about that, and this vulnerability, actually, I think worked pretty well right into sort of the Western way of doing things.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We were in Arizona early this year, and you were pointing out some areas where you were filming Winchester 73. Was parts of it also done on the backlot here at Universal?
I think a few things, but we did most of it, in Arizona.
You know, after 1950, you started making a lot of films in a very, very short time. In fact, in 1950, you made 4 films in a row. What prompted it?
Well, I think this was sort of at the end of a time where I'd been sort of wandering around after being away for 4 years in the war, to sort of try my best to get back into the picture business, and it took some time, and there were a lot of things that came up that I didn't expect and really didn't know how to handle very much, but I had a great sort of moral support by an awful lot of people. I think that's one of the reasons. I then, of course, at 41, I got married, and I got 2 young boys along with it. So I got sort of this feeling about that I hadn't had before, that here I suddenly have a family to support and everything. I better get to work and get there fast and do a lot. The idea of so many pictures in a row, this wasn't new to me. This is one of the wonderful things that happened as a contract player in one of the big studios. You sort of learn your craft by working at it, and so this wasn't new to me. And I was very thankful for MGM for sort of teaching me this way of doing things and doing them fast.
That's Dutch Henry Brown. I thought you said you didn't know him.
I said I didn't recall the name.
Stephen McNally played your brother in the film. Any recollections about him?
Awful good. Wonderful actor, and everything was very serious. I mean, this was the way it should be. But he did an excellent actor, and a tremendous contribution to the film, I think.
You know, you've called Winchester 73 a lifesaver once. Quote, "It rescued me from a very serious situation." Do you credit this film as the watershed film in your character development?
Well, I wouldn't say that exactly. I just think that it opened up a new sort of an area for me in the picture business, in the type of story I could do. I've always had the feeling, now that I can look back on things and sort of make judgment, I've always felt that the Western, which is sort of pure motion picture when you come right down to it, the Western has had, ever since the beginning of the picture business, the Western has had trends, up and down, and it's continued all through the history of the picture business. And if you are able to get the story started at the time when that trend is starting up, you're in very good shape. But that's what I had a feeling when I got to Winchester at this particular time. I thought it was a good story. I was very impressed with Anthony Mann. All of us said, let's take this fellow, because you could see that he had a thing that is absolutely essential in a Western. You could see that he had a very conscious feeling that a Western had to be a visual thing. Talking is all right, but in a Western, the story is told visually. And if you've got a lot of people sitting around talking and everything, you don't have a good Western. And I'm not, I know Anthony Mann believed that. And the further I got when I did some pictures with John Ford, of course, he was absolutely, this is like reading the Bible to him. He just comes out very strongly and says, if you can't tell the story and get it up on the screen without reliance on the spoken word, you're not using the medium properly, which is sort of what I realized when I started doing Westerns with Winchester.
Every so often, maybe one gun out of every 10 or 20,000.
Ah, Will Geer. He plays Wyatt Earp here, another one of my favorite character actors. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
And my favorite, too. He always has the ability to make something in each character he plays different, make something that has a flavor to it that is entirely different from the last picture he did, from the character in the last picture he did. And this is something that has to do with professionalism and with knowing your job. And it happens very much in people like Will Geer and so many of them.
Anthony Mann said that you work so hard sharpshooting that your knuckles were raw from practicing. Is this true? Did you really practice and practice?
Well, yes, I I just felt that it was very important to the character to get so that when I picked up the gun, it had to look as though I'd had the gun in my hands before and that I knew what I was doing, especially at this particular time. No, I took a lot of time at getting used to the gun, and actually I had a gun home that I practiced with, just in handling the gun, just like, which I thought was very important.
Mr. Stewart, Anthony Mann estimated that the most successful pictures you two made were Bend of the River and the Glenn Miller Story, along with Strategic Air Command. They were made for a total of $5 million, and they grossed over $27 million. Did you suggest Anthony Mann to direct Winchester 73 to Aaron Rosenberg?
No, I think we saw this picture that he'd made. I don't know how it came up, but none of us had ever heard the name Anthony Mann. But the picture was offered, the picture that he made, a Western, and all of us seeing, and there were quite a few people there, and they all had the same reaction to it. They said, "This is a beautifully directed picture, and if you've got a good Western, this would be a good man to do it." And everybody was so enthusiastic about it that there was no question about Anthony Mann as the right man to do the picture.
You have said that you prefer a director who doesn't move the camera much. Mann was one of these and was well known for his magnificent framing and selection of the proper background to complement a scene. Any comment on the directors you've worked with?
Well, this is pretty much the basic theory that Anthony Mann worked on, just like several other people. He was a visual man, and especially in Westerns, and he was able to make the background and make the action and movement of the cast and in accordance with the story, make that so much a part of the story that nobody really talked very much. Westerns have never had a language problem when they're shown in countries all over the world because nobody talks very much, and up there visually you can see exactly what's happening. And you can see exactly how this is affecting different people in the story, and you don't have to have any words.
That's Henry Brown. Straight in the bullseye for Dutch Henry Brown. Looks like we can move this target clear into the next county, and they'd still be shooting even.
Wait a minute. See if you can hit this.
Huh? Suit you?
Sure.
Ah, here we see Will tossing a coin in a shooting competition. The camera is placed so that it actually looks like you're hitting the coin. How did they do that?
Well, as I remember, they had a sharpshooter with the gun, and the shell actually hit the coin.
Oh my God.
The next thing, and this is when they.
Ready?
Whenever you say.
That's amazing. Look at that. How could anyone do that?
No, I just think there was another gun that was very close on the thing, and the gun coincided with the guns we were shooting.
Just amazing, just amazing. You made 8 films with Anthony Mann, and all were successful. Did you find your relationship with Mann rewarding?
Yes, very. Yes, it is something very special, and I've always, I've always felt that Anthony Mann didn't, over the years, didn't get the credit that he deserved, and why this was, I don't know, but I think he had tremendous talent. He had a great understanding about what, as I said before, about the visual quality that is necessary to get up there at the screen. He also knew that by getting things up there on the screen without people talking too much, you really at times are able to get believability up on the screen. And when you get people in the audience believing what they're seeing up there, then you're in pretty good shape, not only with the picture, but with the scene and everything. But the idea that Anthony Mann started on the first I knew about him was in the Western. But when the Glenn Miller story came along, there wasn't any question about it. Aaron Rosenberg and all of us, there wasn't any question about it. Well, there couldn't be farther apart as far as story and background and everything than a Western and the Glenn Miller story. But Anthony Mann had proved to us so completely that he was able to handle telling a story up there on screen. It didn't matter what type of story it was.
Borden Chase was one of the writers of the film. What do you remember about him?
Well, Borden wrote so many films that I was lucky enough to be in. He had this great ability to get words down, very simple, to not bowl people over with these hundreds and paragraph after paragraph of words. He was very stingy with words, and this is something I always admired very much about Mr. Chase. And he did this for years and years. Was a tremendous asset to the picture business.
Guess we won't have time for that engraving.
I suppose you're pulling out, too.
That's right.
All right.
I want to congratulate you, McAdam. That was real fine shooting.
Thanks. You pick up the guns and the horses, I'll get the stuff out of the room.
Yes, sir. I can't think of anyone I'd rather see own that gun except maybe me.
Many critics noted that Mann's direction of you in action scenes was very effective. Was it difficult to jump suddenly into such physical scenes as you did?
No, I don't remember it being too difficult. I know that I got an awful lot of help from first my stand-in and my double and my friend Ted Mapes, who was with me for 35 years, and we would sort of go through this, and he would give me the moves to make, not so much to keep me from getting hurt, but so that it looked real and it looked as though there was a fight going on. And I depended pretty much on Ted Mapes and other stuntmen. And this is another thing about Tony Mann. Tony said, "Now, I want a scuffle here, and I want a good one, but don't go overboard on it because we got a lot of way to go in the picture, and don't pull out all the stops yet."
Don't break your neck.
And he would leave it pretty much to the stuntmen. This is their business, after all. And they would work things out, not only for themselves, but they work things out. And I always took their advice when they'd say, "Well, we'll do this, but at the end of this, and cut so that you can get in and are seen during the scuffle." And this, to me, was always the best way to do it. I know Duke Wayne felt that way too. It was better for the director not to have fights laid out like a scene. This way that Anthony Mann had of leaving this, as far as the violent action is concerned, let the people that are going to be responsible for a lot of it do it first, and let him decide whether he needed more or less, or whether it was all right.
Mm-hmm. Were you ever interested in producing and directing yourself? In fact, didn't you actually direct a segment of the GE Theater titled The Trail to Christmas? Do you recall that?
The Trail to Christmas, I don't think that, well, maybe that was the name. I directed a couple of those. And then I directed an Air Force picture called Cowboy 5-7. And I liked it very much. It was very interesting, but I somehow didn't get bowled over by it. But I think I did, like a lot of us. I just think my job in this thing is acting. So and the right way for an actor to feel is that you can never stop learning. You can't say, well, I've finished and I'm an absolutely perfect actor. So that doesn't happen. So you just keep working to get your performance smoother and get your performance and understand more what type of thing you can do to the character, that through your ability, through your knowledge of acting, and through your personality, can do a better job at getting in on the screen.
You know, you seem to adopt a more direct style of speaking with Winchester 73. Was this a conscious decision on your part?
I suppose I had, I don't know what number this picture was after the war, but the ones after the war certainly weren't doing very well, and I think this was one of the feelings that I had, that it wasn't so much had to alter my way of doing things as it was to change the sort of impression I gave the audience. And I was conscious of this as it took place, but here again, Tony Mann was a great help, and also the story itself. Chase was so good because these words, you couldn't say them in the old Stewart drawl or the quiet fellow. It demanded more than that, and to meet the demand, you just had to make changes, not fundamental changes, but you had to make changes in your way of doing things.
And that change persisted, it seems, in many of your films thereafter. It's a different image somehow.
Well, I like to believe, and I hope that looking back, that at least in that I didn't get stalled in one character, and no matter what type of role it was, there was this sort of same feeling that you got of the way I spoke, or the way I did. I just hope that I was able to do a variety of parts that required an entirely different sort of way of looking at the story, and was able to do this without losing the the basic quality that I think I kept through all of the pictures.
Suppose you want to sell.
I'm buying, not selling. Your blackjack on the queen. What's young Bull doing this far north?
I wouldn't
There's a wonderful story about you and Alfred Hitchcock and the Man Who Knew Too Much. And didn't he tell you that he didn't want to hear any words for a specific scene?
Oh yes. Well, Alfred Hitchcock had the same theory that John Ford had. He said although he was completely prepared and worked on the words, word by word. He would work for months on this. But after he had this, and after he had all this the way he wanted it, then he didn't want to hear anything about the words. He didn't want to hear any words, and he was a villain to the script girl, because we'd do a scene, and he'd say, "Fine, here's the next one," and the script girl, the poor thing, would come to him and say, "Mr. Hitchcock, so many people didn't say the right thing. Mr. Stewart said his sentence completely backwards," or something like that. And Hitchcock said, "Well, it looked fine, and we'll print that one." And the poor girl went back and tried to explain to her boss, and without blaming it completely on Hitchcock, what happened. But there's great similarity in this idea that the visual thing, I remember, and it was under a little different circumstances, we were doing in the picture The Man Who Knew Too Much, and sort of the final part of the picture was done in Albert Hall in London. And it was this was the place where the assassination was to take place, and everything had become very complicated. And the London Symphony was there playing, and I was chasing Doris Day up the stairs up to the balcony, and I had this long speech, which I thought had very much to do with sort of working out the story and explaining to the audience what was happening and how we were going to come out on it and everything. And I'd worked pretty hard on this speech. It was, as I say, it was a long speech, but I felt that it was really very important at this part of the picture. Well, right in the middle, and the London Symphony was in the back, but of course they quieted it down when I was talking. And Hitchcock said, I just want to say this, but you're talking so much that I'm unable to enjoy the London Symphony. And he said, why don't you chase Doris up the stairs just like you've been doing? Only just don't say anything. And I sort of nodded my head and said, all right, although those hours it took me to learn the darn thing. Well, anyway, I did, and chased Doris up and of course it was much better for many reasons, because
yeah, sure was.
This stuff I was saying to her, the audience was way ahead and knew exactly what I was saying anyway, and also the music had to be muffled down while I was talking. And Hitchcock didn't like that, and I imagine a lot of the audience wouldn't have liked it either, because it's kind of a tough thing to compete against the London Symphony. So anyway, but this idea of the spoken word, and I've seen it in quite a few directors over the years, and I think maybe one of the reasons for it is that the motion picture started out as a visual thing. I mean, that's the basis.
Silent films.
That's the basis for our for the motion picture, the whole idea of the motion picture. As sound came in and as people began to talk, this was taken all right, and they were able to do this. But when you look back over it, the spoken word hasn't had a real serious great effect on motion pictures. It's still the visual thing. The spoken word is for the stage. This is where it originated and where it belongs. And it's all right in pictures now in modern times, but I think if you keep thinking about the visual aspect of the story being told on that big screen, and you're looking at and getting the whole sort of feeling of the story by visual means and not by people telling you about it, it's a nice way to think about the pictures, I think.
Aces full on eights. Just missed being a dead man's hand.
Not enough. 4 trays.
Drop it.
You hadn't ought to have done that, Dutch. You know I run a decent place. One on the house before you leave.
Who said I was leaving?
You're leaving.
Don't forget your shells. You may need them. Open them up.
Now, here we see a number of promising young contract players that appeared in Winchester 73. There's Rock Hudson, my God. Any recollections about him?
No, not particularly. He did a very good job as the Indian, as the chief, and it worked very well. As a matter of fact, I didn't get to talk to him very much, but I think it was one of the first pictures he was in.
I think so too, yes.
And I think everybody realized that he knew his job and turned out to do it very well.
Look at this beautiful background. Look at the way it's been shot. Isn't it magnificent?
Yeah, that's
God. Just beautiful.
That's really tough thing to have that type of focus so good for that and that depth of field. You know, that guy on the horse quite a way back there.
It is beautiful.
That's Bill Daniels. No one better.
Cinema photographer William Daniels contributed immensely to the Mann Stewart pictures. He also photographed Erich von Stroheim's Greed. Do you have any thoughts of him, any recollections?
Oh, well, they're just all. I think he's one of the fine, great cameramen in the history of pictures. And I got to know him at MGM. He was there for quite a while. So many people at MGM, the Gable, Garbo, they wouldn't think of anybody else. All the Woody Van Dyke, Clarence Brown, all the so many of the directors there wouldn't think of having anybody else but Williams. He was just, and he was fast, but he was fast in the right way. He didn't slop over things the way cameramen try to establish the word around that they're fast, which is all right. But if they're fast and forget a lot of things and don't get the finished product up there on the screen, then it doesn't mean anything to be fast. Bill Daniels was an absolute opposite of that. Everything was absolutely finished and absolutely done in just a wonderful, wonderful way.
You know, one of my favorites in the film is Millard Mitchell, and he played High Spade in the film. He played a similar role also in The Naked Spur. He was also studio head in Singing in the Rain and many other classic character parts he played. Any recollections about this guy?
Well, I'd known Millard quite a while. Millard was back on the New York stage at the same time I was, in the early 30s. And he just was an excellent actor. He was back there, and when we were doing one play right after the other, because the theater was very busy then. It was right during the Big Depression. Millard he played one part right after the other, and a different part. He was more than a character actor because he could blend his parts from small sort of small short periods of time on screen to a very important part, a very, very crucial part of the story, and do it with the same ability. As I say, I think knowing him back on the stage was a great help, but he was an excellent actor, and I thought did a wonderful job in this picture.
Borden Chase recalled that he always gave the main character a sidekick to tell the story. The lead never is burdened with having to tell the story. In Winchester 73, Millard Mitchell carries the narrative. Do you think that this was effective in helping your role?
Yes, this is one of the things, one of the sort of rules that I really think exist in making Westerns, of putting the actual narrative, what narrative there was about the story, not putting it way up there above the visual. And the fact that Millard no one could have done it better, and had done it simpler, and done it in a way that the audience wasn't aware that they were getting the essence of the story, all the essence that they needed with the visual part of it up there. But this was through Millard Mitchell, which I think was, story-wise, was a very good idea, and a very good idea of Tony's.
Did you ever do Winchester 73 on radio? We understand that Lux Radio Theater was interested, but backed out when they saw all those empty pages, no dialogue.
Yes, well, somebody questioned this, and I've been telling the story for a long time, so I've got to stick with it. If it didn't happen exactly this way, it happened. It was very close thing, but they did. You know, I did a lot of radio. I used to love radio and everything, and the Lux Radio Theater was a wonderful place that all the studios in town used to plug new pictures. They'd do the story in the Lux Radio Theater, had a great rating all over the country. They'd do the story on radio just before the picture opened. And this is what we were going to do with Winchester, and they sent it down. The people sent it back, and they said, nobody says anything in this picture. All we do is talk. So it didn't get done.
The wrong medium, obviously. After you completed Winchester 73, you did a series for radio called The Six Shooter.
Oh, yes. I've always enjoyed the radio. I don't know whether this is absolutely the truth, but I hear it lots of times that radio is becoming more important. It's coming back.
That's what I've heard.
And it's getting more important, and they're getting so that they're making more of these series for radio. And the Six Shooter, it was a wonderful experience. And actually, the radio, you've got an entirely different problem. You don't have the advantage of visual. You have to do everything. Words and sound have to. But it's amazing what you can do with. It's amazing what you can do with just words and sound. There used to be a radio program that we all went on called Suspense, and they did it here at 11 o'clock at night, and everybody in the place. And I did it quite a few times, and they would do everything. It'd be these terrible stories that they'd give you, and they'd do everything to scare you. They would have a man on a cello back in the corner, you couldn't see him, playing this terrible sort of gruesome music and everything. The lights would be very low, and we'd got. I had to have a stand to put my script on because I got to shaking so much I couldn't read it. So I'd put the script on the stand, and I really got scared a lot of the time, which is of course what they wanted to do. But the radio in those days was a lot of fun.
When you were back at MGM, you were a part of the great contract system, contract players, etc. Can you describe what that was like?
Well, I always when I don't like to give the feeling that I'm saying give me the good old days and everything, but it's all right to look back on the past, and it's all right to learn from the past. But I've been lately I've really felt that the big studio system was the right system. And the contract player system, this was the right system also, because to be a contract player, it wasn't like it is now. You know, it's amazing to me how the young people today develop into such good actors when they don't have the advantage of the contract system. Because in the contract system, it wasn't a whenever you work, let's work. You came to work every day. Came to work at 8 o'clock, left at 6. Now, you may not be working a picture. You'd be working out in the gym. You would be doing tests with other people. You would be you would be taking voice lessons, not to sing, but just to improve your talking voice. You were busy, and you did big parts in little pictures and little parts in big pictures. But you were all this time you were learning the craft, and this I was so and have always been so grateful for. Because, and I suppose that this will never again take place the way it was in those days, because nowadays it's probably too expensive. The whole idea of the studio systems the way it was then, today it would be too expensive. But I've always been very grateful that I was a part of that then, and I had the opportunity to learn the craft by working at it.
J.C. Flippin played Sergeant Wilkes. He appeared in many of the John Wayne films and also yours. Do you remember him? Any stories about him?
Remember him very well. He was just one of those. He was just one of those real solid character actors that were such a tremendous asset to any film they were in, because everybody knew that they were going to work the character out themselves, and that it was going to blend itself right into the whole story, and be a tremendous asset to the film, which it always was. Everybody had great admiration for J.C. Flippin.
You were elected to the Cowboy Hall of Fame in 1972. It's quite an honor, I guess. How do you feel about it?
Yes, that was wonderful. I've always been the Cowboy Hall of Fame. I've always had tremendous respect and admiration for that organization. I think means a lot, not only to those that are elected into it, but I think it's a part of the country. It represents a part of the country. There's something very special about the American cowboy, and I think he'll exist all through the history of this country.
It's truly in our roots, isn't it? It really is. Mm.
That's real thoughtful of you. Thank you.
My God, there's Tony Curtis, another Universal contract player. Any memories about him?
Yes, I remember him very well. He was sort of very, very quiet, knew his job, did it very well, especially in all this scene right here. I remember him very well. But it was sort of, I think probably this is one of his first pictures, wasn't it?
I believe it was, yes. Here you are with another newcomer, Shelley Winters. In her biography, her only comment about you is doing love scenes with Jimmy was very difficult because we both have good left sides. You have any comment on that one?
No, I don't remember that. I know.
I don't blame you.
We do have both have good left sides, but I never remember having any trouble with Shirley. Sure about that. She was very good in this, just excellent.
How come there's no love scenes between the two of you?
I don't remember one. And
no, there's none. There's none.
I know what they are.
Well, that's, you know, in the Western in those days, there were love scenes were a lot different than they are now.
We heard that you picked out your own wardrobe for the film. Is it true?
Well, here again, I did it under the auspices of Ted Mapes and Roy Myers and a lot of the stunt people.
I guess everybody's afraid sometimes.
Because I didn't want it different. I didn't want anything to try something new. I just wanted it to be. I didn't want to experiment with some Western costume that would make it stand out. I think that's a terrible idea. I think I've always been superstitious, and I've always been superstitious about hats. I think it all started with this terrible thing that you're going to fall down the stairs if you put a hat on a bed. You know that's a terrible thing, and whistle in the. I remember back on the stage, if anybody whistles in the dressing room, you can have them put in jail. But I left it pretty much up to the, as I say, up to Ted Mapes and but the hat thing, now that hat, I found it someplace. Everybody agreed that it was all right, but it became sort of and this is where the superstition comes in again. It became sort of a good luck charm to me, and I insisted on it and kept it. And I think I was wrong to do that. I think I should have used different hats for different pictures, but superstition got me.
Didn't John Ford once rearrange the hat for you, stomp it or something? How'd you feel about that?
Stop it! I had a terrible time with him because he didn't want to. He said that's the. I brought my hat in. He said that's the worst hat I've ever seen in my life. That day. You don't look like you're a West. You don't look like a cowboy. You don't look like anything with that hat on. And I just kept after him, and finally, he let me use the hat. But then the next picture I did for him, he wouldn't let me wear a hat at all. So that was his. But then the next picture after that, it was a great, big, wide, wonderful hat that as I say, he taught me a very good lesson. I should have changed hats from.
How come the hat is stained? Looks kind of stained. Is it from sweat?
I had a terrible time getting all that stain out for the next picture.
Did you?
Yeah.
I bet you did. Dry cleaning or what?
But I forget. I did it. I did it sort of over a campfire one night, and then they said you could give it a little more character. But as I say, it was a little hard getting it out when somebody said the hat looks terrible.
Here's Rock Hudson again. Look at the scope of this, the feeling of it. It's just magnificent.
Well, here again, we can go back to Tony Mann. These things were worked out beautifully. Tony never had the cameras all over the place, okay? But he would just take it one part of the scene at a time and cover it. But he wouldn't try and do the whole thing to cover it from way back. He would just take an advance in the scene slowly, but get everything that he wanted close up and everything, and especially the falls, because you don't want to do as few of those as possible, and have everything set up right and have it covered well and do it.
A lot of major stunt work there.
A lot of very good horse work too.
How do they do the falls on the horses? I mean, it looks so dangerous.
Well, they had just started it here, and I think they were still doing it in some studios. They used to trip horses with wires that they'd stretch, and
Awful.
it was very, very dangerous for the horse, and so many of them broke their legs, which was the finish for the horse. But this was finally just brought to an end, and what happened? The stuntman with his horse just went off and alone practiced with the horse and got the horse to take a fall the way the horse wanted to, which was okay. And he made sure that he got free of the horse and that the horse didn't have anything on the saddle, anything sticking out that might hurt the horse as he fell, so that the horse it was a stunt for the horse, and there were very, very few of them had any problem.
How long did it take to shoot a scene like this? Was it several days, one day? Do you recall?
No, I would think looking back, I think it's a week.
Wow.
No, I think this was a week. It's a wonderful set, I think. It's so much you're tempted so much in that part of Arizona to do it back when there's so many just straight desert-like areas with the hills way in the background. But to have these hills so close and everything, it adds so much to the scene.
Was there ever any discussion of shooting it in color, since so many films were being done in color by then?
There was never any discussion about it that I know of. And I sure hope they don't colorize this one.
I know.
What is it, Bull Run?
We might not have run so fast.
Now, Winchester 73 was the first Western in which a complex moral situation is tackled. Were you aware of this when you first read the script?
No, I was just very aware that it was a story that I thought had substance and had characters that meant something, and all of them seemed to be important to the storyline. But I never was. And I don't think any of us were conscious of this sort of thing that has come in the years after it opened. But I think this has something very, very nice and very wonderful to say about the screenwriters.
Did you like your character in this film?
Yeah, yes, I thought it, and of course getting used to handle the gun and there again I depended so much on Ted Mapes. But I just after the take I'd look at him and he'd either do this or then I'd because it's hard to have the feeling whether it looks right. It seems to feel right to you, but something may happen that it doesn't look right. And Ted was right there.
Did Hitchcock ever see any of your Westerns, and what did he think of them?
I never asked him, and I don't think he would have told me if I had asked him.
I wonder maybe if they would have influenced him in casting you in Rear Window.
I don't know. No, but I don't think Hitchcock ever saw any of the Westerns. Maybe, I don't,
yeah.
but he never, I never heard that he did.
Mm-hmm. I know that most of the viewers who are watching this with us have already seen Winchester 73. The second time around, it really has a very different meaning because you learn why these two men hate each other so much. And suddenly the characters just have a different meaning, a different feeling. What do you think about it?
Well, I think it's good. I think the mystery. I think the idea that people say to themselves, they see it, they say, what's wrong with these two guys? There's something wrong. I think that's fine. I think that's fine. And I think here again, Tony Mann. Here again, don't spill the beans right away. Let them figure it out, and the picture figures it out for you if you wait until the. But I think this is part of Tony Mann's work, and certainly a part of the script's work.
A few years later, you did another one of my very favorite films called The Glenn Miller Story. How did this concept start? How did the idea start?
I think Aaron Rosenberg had the first idea about it. I don't exactly know how I got into the picture, but I know when the two of us got together and we were thinking about doing the story, nobody ever considered anybody else but Tony Mann to do the picture. Now, how this, it just gives you a general idea about the quality of this man's work and the amazing confidence that he would build in people working for him, and was no doubt in any of our minds that he wasn't completely capable of taking on. Well, I don't think you could get much farther from a Western than the Glenn Miller story, you know.
Yeah. We recently re-released the Glenn Miller Story and did big business with it still again. It just shows you the staying power of his films.
Yeah.
It's just truly amazing. It really is.
Steve, I'm not sure.
I won't lie to you. I went yellow, crazy yellow. It came over me all of a sudden, but I came back for you. You know I came back for you. I'd give my eyes if it didn't happen. And someday I'll prove it to you.
Another fine actor, Dan Duryea. He played Waco Johnny Dean. He also appeared in Thunder Bay with you. His performance was intense, and he gives a classic performance here. Was he good to work with?
Oh, just ideal. And the thing about Dan Duryea, I think it happens every once in a while, but here he had a way of moving. He had a style to his acting that I never saw before, and I've never seen since. He had this individual way of moving, of this individual way of saying lines, and a tremendous, solid humor behind it all. I was very impressed with Dan Duryea.
We jumped over the haze down on the Big Blue just for jokes. And who was there? Noonan the Marshal and a dozen men from the Triangle Bar.
You have no right to...
As a child, you wrote and produced a play called The Slacks. It was about World War I, more or less, and it was followed by another play that you wrote called To Hell with the Kaiser. Did the acting bug already hit you when you were a kid?
Well, I don't know whether it was acting or when my dad was in World War I, and in weekends and on summer vacation, I worked in the store, but he wanted me to get a better job, and he got me a job in the projection room of the Strand Theater at home, run by a man named Sam Gallo. And it started out, I was just rewinding film, but then I got used to, in those days there was no motor on the thing. You cranked the thing by hand, the projector. And this took some going so you wouldn't have to speed up and slow down and so on. But that got me interested, I think, in a way. And we had a basement in our house, and it had a little, in one end of the room, it had a little sort of rise, and I made that into a stage and made a curtain that went up and down, and had made footlights. And To Hell with the Kaiser, yes, I made that. I played all the parts except and then there was one where my two sisters were
May and Virginia were involved.
Were nurses, and I played all the male parts in that too. But this, I suppose, and thinking back, I suppose this sort of, I wouldn't have started all this stuff if I hadn't had in the sort of the back of my mind. Maybe this is, or I certainly was interested in it and fascinated by it.
All right, Steve. Have it your way. Cook up some coffee.
Coffee? With Noonan sitting out there?
I heard that when you were 4 years old, you built an airplane, and you ran it off a roof and nearly killed yourself. Is this true?
No, I was born 4. Be all right if I was 4. I should have known better. I was 12, 13, 14 years old, yeah.
I can see his point.
But I had the thing all built and everything, and we had a slope roof in the back of our house. It just didn't fly.
What happened to you?
Well, I found myself all coiled up in a whole lot of broken pieces of wood and bed sheets that I stole from my mother to put on the wings.
You mind if I take care of him? Ah, you'd miss. You know how I hate noise. What was I saying?
You were talking about yourself.
Where did I stop?
You didn't, but you can now.
Can you evaluate who was the best cowboy? Was it John Wayne? Was it Jimmy Stewart? Or Henry Fonda?
John Wayne. I would say Henry Fonda, except that I did great friends. Fonda's the best actor, but I think cowboy, John Wayne.
Fonda was the one with the most acting training, wasn't he?
Well, actually, yes. And he spent more time on the stage than any of us. I've always regretted that I didn't spend more time on the stage, because there's nothing like that for experience, real experience, and to sort of bring you up to snuff as far as the acting is concerned.
What are you trying to prove?
Nothing. Just trying to buy a gun. You sure you don't want to sell it to me, kitchen boy?
You can serve us next, waiter. I like mine black.
Steve, give him the gun. Can't you see what he's trying to do?
Coffee's ready.
Clean it up. Clean it up.
Dan Duryea is certainly a quick draw in this scene. In your westerns, did it take a number of takes to create the illusion of the fastest gun in the West?
Well, it just took practice. I took my gun home every night, and with the holster and with everything, and would get on my knees on my bed, so when I dropped it, it wouldn't hurt the gun on the floor. And just would do it for a half hour at a time. And
you were a fast draw, though, weren't you?
Well, you just it's a thing that you can get by practice, and you have to be able to do it. It is one of these things they can speed up, or it's a thing you just have to do.
One of my favorite subjects is your horse Pie that you used in so many of your movies. Where did you find him?
Well, this was Winchester 73. This is I remember exactly where it was in the Universal lot, and Stevie Myers was a stunt girl, and she was the daughter of Roy Myers, who was so legendary stuntman and had horses that he rented to westerns all over the place, and was in the picture business for a long time. But he had a horse, the young, sort of feisty horse named Pie, who was a beautiful sorrel, half quarter horse and half Arabian, which gave him a beautiful looking neck, and he had a lot of stuff in him. And I remember when we were picking out horses for Winchester, Stevie brought 3 of these horses, and he was great, big, sloppy, plodding horses that sort of went around, and it didn't. I sort of, and thank God, my dad taught me, when I was very young, taught me about horses, because he always had one around. And I didn't get too much riding in, but I got to know the horse, and I got to, because I cleaned out the stable, and so I was comfortable around horses. That you see it happen so many times in film, because the horse knows exactly if you're scared. He knows exactly, and he knows exactly what to do. He does exactly what you don't want him to do. As I stopped riding these 2 big lumping things, I said, Stevie, don't you have any other sort of these horses are too big, you don't, and then I saw the head of a horse peeking around the building, which was on the lot here, and Stevie just said Pie, and he came around, and I said, well, how about, can I ride him? And Stevie said, well, you can ride him. He's my horse, but if you want to. Well, of course, it was a love at first sight, and I asked if I could use him, And Stevie was a little reluctant, and he said, well, I'll tell you, I'll let you know about it tomorrow. And that sort of started along. I rode Pie for 20 years. And when he stuck his head around that corner, he must, I think he probably was about 6 or 7 years old. But I rode him for 20 years, and Stevie would never let go of him. He was her horse, and she never sold him. She had always treated him like a son. And but Pie, I think Pie had a great deal to do with westerns and me.
There's a great oil paint. Oh, it's a watercolor that's in your living room. Is that Pie, actually?
That's Pie, and Hank Fonda and I were doing a picture up in Santa Fe, Western. Oh, in the 70s, the late 70s.
The Cheyenne Social Club.
Cheyenne Social Club, yeah. And by that time, Pie was getting up in years. He had some sway back, and Santa Fe is 6,000 feet, and Stevie wasn't sure that she wanted to take him up, but I insisted, and I said, "Come on over." And so she took Pie up, but I got him a trailer, so it was just him. He didn't have to be with other horses, and he seemed to like it fine and seemed to be all right up there. But I knew the first time I got on him, and I knew that the altitude was just too much for him. So I had to use a double, which was worked out fine. But unbeknownst to me, unbeknownst to anybody, Fonda, either on Sundays or on days off, or little time off, Pie was in a corral right down near to the big set that we had. And Pie stayed there for the whole picture, and I didn't know anything about it until the picture finished, and we were back here, and in a few days, Henry Fonda came back with a picture, all framed, everything, of Pie that he'd done in watercolor, and it's perfectly beautiful, and he got Pie absolutely everything about the horse. And that picture's been hanging in our library ever since, and will be there forever.
I have heard that Glenn Ford was once working with Pie and nearly got quite badly injured. Is this true? Have you ever heard this before?
Yeah, I don't know how bad it was with Glenn Ford, but I know that Stevie told me that Pie sort of liked to get his own way, and Pie had given a few actors some trouble and everything. Pie, you had to watch him, because he had a lot of life in him, and he didn't like orders unless they were said right, and he liked. I got so I know I could talk to the horse. I know, and I forget what it was, right out in the back lot of Universal, and I think maybe it was Far Country or one of those. And I'm supposed that all the bad guys are in the saloon, and through the picture I have a little bell that's on the horn of the saddle of the horse, and they're waiting for me to gun me down for some reason. And the first thing they hear is the bell, and they all get ready, and so the camera is supposed to move along. They just see him on Pie's feet, and they move along, and then the camera moves up, and there's nobody on Pie but the bell, and nobody, and Pie goes past the saloon, and they're fooled. Meantime, I climb up the back door of the saloon, get in, and I get them off. Well, somebody said, how are you going to do this? And I said, well, I'll just talk to Pie and tell him what to do, and he'll do it. So I said, just get everybody back and just let me. So I walked with Pie and walked down where he was supposed to walk, and did it a couple of times, and really talked to him. And Pi did it very quietly and everything. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and the assistant director finally came up and said, "How long are you going to talk to the horse?" And I said, "Well, it's fine. It's fine. He knows what to do." So I got down at the other end of the thing. They rolled the cameras and everything, and I said, "Fine. No problem." The bell rang. We did it absolutely perfect.
Anthony Mann said that you were a terrific rider, pleasing to the horse as well. He said, quote, "I swear that the horse looks back at him and smiles." Even in the hazardous scenes. Was this true? Did you have that kind of feeling with the horse?
That's what I say about my feeling about Pi. He just seemed to he seemed to know just instinctively what he was supposed to do and how he was to do it. And the one thing I had a little trouble if there were a bunch of us, and I was supposed to be back 3 or 4 horses back, and we were at a full gallop going someplace or other. Pi didn't like that. Pi wanted to be out front, which the story-wise we couldn't go. And so I just had to yell at Pi and tell him to slow down. You can't be first this time.
Looks like you're full up. Yeah, looks like.
Some of those scenes looked very dangerous. Did you ever feel that you were in danger yourself?
No, and there again, I think I looked at Ted Mapes when and if something came up which sort of impressed Ted and the stuntmen that were around, Tony Mann. Every time we got into something like that, Tony said, "But how much can we do? How much can Stewart do?" And then they all had it worked out, and they all had it. So I took pretty much. It wasn't the idea of doing all your old stunts and everything. This is what the stuntmen were for, and this is what this great job that they've done all through the history of the movies. And the tremendous value to the talent. But the main thing was to listen to what they had to say, and if they felt that you were able to do this stunt, or you were able to do this, or get into this ruckus, or fall off a horse, or something like that, if they felt that you could do it, well, you did it. At least that's the way I felt about it.
Riker told us Dutch was writing to me.
Johnny Dean, yeah.
Give that a chance. Don't quarrel with him.
I got no quarrel with him.
Lynn.
Here you receive a warning that John Wayne would never have needed in his westerns. You've compared Wayne's performances as a Western hero with your performances by saying that his image was almost superhuman, while your image is more vulnerable. Did you and Wayne ever talk about that difference in your performances?
No. I as a matter of fact, I never talked about it to anybody until way along. This was quite a while ago. But the pictures I did with Duke, we never talked about it.
Was it fun when those different images did get together? For example, in The Man Who Shot Liberty Balance, or The Shootist, what was it like?
Yeah, it was great. It was great. Like Duke Wayne, there'll never be anybody to take his place. He was a champion.
I'll take you to him.
You were a student at Princeton, and I understand that you'd wanted to become an architect. Are you still interested in that field?
No, as a matter of fact, I was going to graduate school and get my master's degree in architecture. But I got sort of waylaid. I went up to Massachusetts and got into a stock company run by Josh Logan, who was a Princeton man, and several other Princeton, Myron McCormick, and several other Princeton people. And this, I don't know, I often say that the acting thing is like getting bit by a bug. It really takes hold, and it really, it's a very powerful thing when it gets a hold of you, and which is what I did. And I went to, they tried out a play up there that they were going to bring to New York, which they usually did in those days. And I had a small part in it, and they said, well, this is the end of the summer, and they said, well, we're taking this to Broadway, and if you want to do the part that you did in the play up here, you can do it in New York. So I went back and told my family that wasn't going to graduate school. I was going to do a small part in a Broadway play. I can't remember any. They took it very well, but I think when I said this, I think everybody just reached for a chair so they could sit down and take the shock sitting down.
Back in the 40s, you won an Academy Award for the Philadelphia Story. Where did this Academy Award actually end up?
No, it ended up in my father's hardware store, in the window.
In the window?
Yeah.
Isn't that an unusual place to have an Academy Award?
Well, a lot of people saw it. He'd take it out of the window every once in a while when he wanted to show had some new line of hardware or something. He would take it out, but he put it over the knife counter. Put it on the knife counter, which is in those old hardware stores. The knife counter is the first thing you when you come into the store. That's the first. Pocket knives and everything. And I thought, thinking back over it, I thought it was sort of a nice touch that he put the award there and put it under a cheese bell.
What was the significance of that?
I asked him if there was anything. He said no. I just happened to have it, and.
What did he think of your film career?
I don't know. He didn't quite understand this acting thing.
The climax, which was filmed on the jagged hills of Arizona, was incredible. Was it very dangerous for you to do?
No, I never got the feeling then. But this time we were all wrapped up with the story that we were telling, and with this sort of the climax of it, and you were just sort of interested in getting the thing right and not overdoing things and making it believable.
Don't mind my calling you Matthew, I hope. I like it better than Dutch Henry Brown.
How high up were you in the scene?
How high?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not very high.
Was there anything underneath you to protect you?
No, but these cliffs weren't. There was plenty of things to hang on to.
Anthony Mann really did paint a picture.
Yeah.
He really did paint a mood, and you can feel it so strongly here. I've just noticed I don't hear any music. Was there any reasons why?
I think that was a part of Tony's feeling about the scene, that it wasn't a question that the scene didn't require music. It was just a question that the scene was so visual that except the gunshot, any sound would be distracting to the scene itself.
First chance I had to thank you for winning me my gun.
I noticed the chips of rock that are flying off of the sides of the stone here?
It's from a rifle of sorts that comes from another direction, but the thing that like the bullet that hits has this sort of white stuff, and it looks like it's cutting into the cutting into the stone itself.
They're shooting so close. That's frightening. Did you have any fears about that?
No, we were just shooting. No.
I didn't get a chance to use that gun, Matthew, but I intend to. There's something you forgot, too. The old man told you never to waste lead. Now you're short. Not that short.
There's a look in your eyes here that has sorrow, and at the same time, you've done something that you've wanted to do for a long time. Can you comment on that?
Well, I think this was a very important moment. And I think those two things that you mentioned, it was very important to have them, because this had a lot to do with a great deal to do with the story itself.
We just want to thank you for joining us here at Universal Studios. It's really been a pleasure.
I've had a great time. This laser thing, this sounds very, very fascinating.
After the release of Winchester 73, James Stewart appeared on the list of the top 10 box office stars for the first time, a position he retained till the end of the decade.